Thank you so much. First things first, what do we think of the type? The font? Are we liking it? I'm reconsidering all of the fonts that I've ever used. Probably you guys are feeling the same way. I'm Brittni. Thank you so much for hanging with us. I know I'm the last one, so bravo to you guys for getting through this all. Not in the terms that it wasn't fantastic, right? It was fantastic, but just, it's a long day, right? So I was thinking before I actually get into it, maybe we could do this super cheesy thing where everybody kind of stands up and does a little shimmy. Yes? Okay, everybody stand up. Yes, I know it's annoying, right? I'm the annoying teacher who's making everybody do something they don't want to do. And just give a little shake. Just shake it out a little bit. Yes. Be weird. I know, a couple people are like, I'm wearing a suit jacket. I don't do that. Okay, fair enough. Okay, thank you so much for humoring me. That was great. Oh, thank you. That was more for me than it was for you, to be honest. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. My name is Brittni, and I love workshops. I know that might seem a little strange to some of you, but I just love everything about them, honestly. I love bringing people together. I love working together really intensely on a really big challenge. I love all of us spearheading and going towards the outcome together. I just love it all. So that's what I do. I'm a workshop designer. I'm a facilitator. I'm also, I do hosting things, and I teach and train on all of those things as well. So, before we actually dive into talking about how to run really awesome workshops, I wanted to kind of get a gauge from you guys. So I have a few questions before we actually kick off. So first question, I think I know the answer, but it's one of those things, I'm just gonna ask it anyway, right? Okay, so first question is, show of hands, you can put your hand up, if you've ever been in a meeting where, you guys are seriously? You've ever been in a meeting where there's a lot of discussion going on, a lot of people talking over each other, a lot of circular conversations going nowhere, no decisions are made, and by the end of the meeting, nothing has actually happened. You might have even taken a few steps back instead of steps forward. Yes, cool. We've all been there, I know. It's an obvious question. Now, my second question is if you've ever been working on something, we're all creative people here, so if you've ever been working on something, maybe you're designing something, and you're super excited about it, you've been putting your heart and soul into this project, right? And you finally have the outcome, and you go and bring it to your manager, your stakeholder, your client, whoever it might be, and they're just not as excited as you were about your work. Anybody? You can admit it. You can't really see anybody. Yeah, perfect. It's happened. Maybe they didn't understand it, whatever it might have been, but they just weren't as excited as you were. Okay, third question and final question is, have you ever been working on a project, whether it was in a big organization or not, but you're working on a project and you've got your role, you got the thing that you're supposed to do, and then you have your other teammates or other teams in the organization doing what they're supposed to do. And then you kind of come back together, and all of a sudden, priorities have changed. Your founder or CEO has decided they don't want to do that thing anymore that you were working on while you were working on it. So there's misalignment everywhere, and you've been wasting all of your time. Anybody? Yes. Okay, awesome. That's what I wanted to hear. And I'm glad that it's not the whole group saying that, but I think you guys will get there at some point. Okay, so all I'm trying to say to you, I'm really trying to sell this, but your pointless meetings, right? The ones that go around in circles. I think you should make those a workshop, at least some of the time, okay? So just consider that next time you're meeting, why not at least structure something like a workshop? You're gonna come to decisions together, you're gonna get actual outcomes, you're gonna move forward a lot faster, I promise. So that's the first reason I love workshops. Okay, second thing, design misunderstandings. Okay, this is a big one, right? Because you guys all know the memes, right? The creative versus client, they don't understand me and how cool I am and all of the awesome things that I'm able to do, right? We've all had that where they're the client literally just doesn't get design, they don't get it. But actually, I would argue it's our job as creatives, as designers, to educate our clients on what our process is, what we're doing, and why. And bringing them along for a little bit, at least, of that process is where you're going to really see an impact. So why not workshop with those crazy, kooky clients who don't get you, right? Okay, perfect. Next one, the cross-functional clashes and confusion, and everybody is moving in a direction, but maybe not in the same direction, right? Coming together more often to work on high priority, obviously, high priority items in the company is so, so valuable. Bringing the stakeholders, bringing the decision makers into the room and actually working with them, maybe it's a series of workshops, whatever it may be, is going to allow you to actually work on things that matter and spend your time wisely. So, you knew what was happening there, didn't you? There was a trend, workshop, right? Okay. So now that you guys all love workshops just as much as I do, I hope, what we're going to talk about today specifically is what makes a good workshop great. Because to be totally honest, and I know I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, but I truly believe that running a good, decent workshop is not very hard. Uh-oh, right? I'm out of a job. Just kidding. The thing is, you can go online, you can research, like, I want to run a workshop about blah, or I have a big challenge. How should I do that? What are the exercises that I need to put together, right? You can find all that information, and honestly, if you prepare and you plan, you can actually run a pretty good workshop. But what makes it actually great? What makes a workshop something that people are going to leave and want to do more of with you, or makes your client want to hire you again to run another strategy session or whatever it might be, right? So that's what we're talking about today. Because honestly, I could talk all day about how to actually build a workshop, but you guys can find that out on Google. So why don't we talk about the kind of like nuances of what makes a workshop actually great? Okay, let's dive in. How'd you like that? Not too bad for a non-designer. All right. Awesome. So I'm basically going to share with you 5 things that I think you need to do a little bit differently in order to make sure your workshops are super powerful, and even more than that, that they actually get you noticed by the people who you want to be noticed by, right? So whether that's your manager, whether that's the client, whether that's your decision maker or stakeholders, whoever that person is, these are the kinds of things that you want to start thinking about when you're bringing people together in a room to run a workshop on any given challenge. Okay. Number 1. So, good workshops accomplish a lot. Who's with me? Yeah! It's true. It is true, and that wasn't a trick question, even though you're probably thinking I thought we were going to be learning something else. Okay, but good workshops accomplish a lot. Totally agree, that is true. But great workshops don't necessarily accomplish a ton, but they set the right expectations, right? So I know this seems obvious, but it's so often missed when it comes to bringing people together for a training or a workshop of any kind, is setting the expectations appropriately. The one question I get asked all the time is okay, but how do I deal with those people who, come in and they're all upset because we didn't do what they thought we were going to do, and they're upset about the outcome because they thought we were going to do more, and I'm like, did you set the expectations? Did you tell them what you were actually planning to do? And that makes all the difference. Now, you might be wondering, how do I do that, Britt? Well, I have some tips, so let's look through them. The first one is, remember that you're in charge of the outcome. You're the facilitator. You're the one who's running the workshop. So when your manager or your client or whoever's hired you to run this workshop, when they come to you and they say, you know what else? We should also incorporate something like this in there. Because we should tackle the entire problem and finish the whole product in one swoop, right? You have to be the one. You have to be strong enough. You have to be confident enough to say, I hear what you're saying, but actually we can't do that. So what we can do is this, and then you get everybody excited about that, right? So setting expectations, remembering that you're the one in charge, right? It's often hard, but good to remember. Obviously, don't try to do too much. Workshops, I think especially in the pandemic when we were doing everything remotely, it was oh my gosh, everybody wanted to run a workshop, and then it was everybody wanted their workshop to be a whole day or more than that. And it's more time does not equal more output. It's really important to remember. So what I like to do is do short sessions, maybe multi-sessions, but never trying to accomplish too much in one session. And then the big tip here is when you're sitting around, so you have everybody in your workshop space, right? And you're doing that cool thing where you're doing intros, and everybody's like, hi, I'm so-and-so, and then you ask them, and what are your expectations for this workshop today, right? And then everybody's like, well, I'm hoping that this is going to happen. I'm hoping that that's going to happen. And you're sitting there as a facilitator thinking, that's not going to happen. That's probably not going to happen. So you need to let them know that, right? So getting expectations is important, but setting the expectations is actually what you really need to do. So you need to go back to them, and it's a conversation, right? And you have to say, hey, totally, like, that's great. What we are going to cover is this bit, but we're not quite going to get to that. But I see that happening, in the next session. And then all of a sudden, their confidence in you as a facilitator is flying through the roof. You've gained their trust. You've been really communicative about what's happening. It's a total game changer. So getting and setting, always at the beginning. Okay, now you're thinking, oh, maybe that was kind of obvious. Fair enough. So let's move into the more intricate stuff. Good workshops run really smoothly. Who agrees? Yeah, that's true. And I love a smooth running workshop. I really, I'm a big planner, a preparer, so I love when things are just on track and on time. But honestly, what's really important to remember is great workshops have peak moments. They might not actually run that smoothly, which is kind of interesting. So this is I know I'm delivering it as the second thing, but I feel like if there's one thing you take from the talk today, it's going to be this bit. Because I think it's you can use it in all sort of areas of your career and of your life, even. So, what the heck is a peak moment, Britt? Well, has anybody read this book? Perfect, no one. This is the book. This is the book that you need to add to your Amazon, buy list, or you go to a used bookstore, because we're all about buying things that are already existing. Okay, great. Okay. So, The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. They talk all about experiences and what makes an experience special, right? What makes things memorable? And they talk about peak moments. And a peak moment is something that happens during an experience that is out of the ordinary. Okay, so it's a bit of a surprise maybe, right? You weren't expecting it. And what's so cool about these peak moments is that they disproportionately impact how we remember an event. So to make that kind of, to explain a little further, I could run a really average workshop, super average, where it's a little clunky even, things aren't totally running on time, I might be a bit flustered, but if I have crafted a few peak moments throughout the workshop, people will actually remember my workshop to be a lot better than it was. How cool is that, right? You're back in the driver's seat, you're in control. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, what can I do as a peak moment? Peak moments are things that make us feel engaged, joyful, surprised, or motivated, or all four of those things, or only a couple of them. I think a perfect example of this is pre-pandemic, I used to run a lot of trainings. And, they were a couple-day events, a lot going on, very intense. But at the end of these events, at the end of the training, we would turn on We Are the Champions, and we'd blast it, the song. And now that I'm telling the story, it sounds really much more culty than I thought it was, but anyway, so we turn on the music, full blast. We get everybody in the room, and it's probably 20 people, let's say, right? They're all cheering. We're let's make some noise, right? We get everybody to cheer. And then we got every person who completed the training to run up to us, high-five us, and we gave them their completion certificate or whatever, right? Now, you're probably thinking there's no way I could do that in a client setting, are you crazy? We did it, the better, the more corporate the group was, the more they loved this. It was hilarious. People that were in full suits were just all right, and they were posing for photos with us. It was bizarre, but it was right at the end of the training, and they left with this high, this feeling of accomplishment and motivation and excitement. And that's just a small example of something that you can do. And these peak moments should be happening throughout your experience or your workshop. Okay. So that's a big one. Now, before we move on to the next slide, I have a peak moment question. I know, I'm going for it again. You guys are geez, it's really coming at us. So what I'm wondering is, can you think of the day today, the conference that we're all at, all the talks, all the people you've met, the food you consumed, whatever. Can you think of a peak moment that you had? Could be that chocolate cake at lunch. Did anybody have that chocolate cake at lunch? Wow, that was killer. Anybody can think of a peak moment? Maybe something that was said in a, you don't even need to tell me, but maybe just like raise your hand if you can think of a peak moment. Yeah? Would you be willing to share it with us? I just tricked you, didn't I? What was it?
Just now.
Just now. Uh-oh. You're a guy after my own heart, because guess what? I'm going to peak your peak moment. Are you ready for this? I have a little prize for you. Thanks for answering my question. There you go. A round of applause. It's just a bag of popcorn. It is from Berlin, and it's a company that, it's kind of a cool thing. It cost me almost nothing, but this guy, he's gonna remember now that I was this weird girl who gave him popcorn for no real reason, right? And that, my friends, is a peak moment. Now I have 2 more. So who else wants a peak moment? Who likes popcorn? I love popcorn. Do you wanna come and get one? Yeah, come over here. Come on over here. Let's give him a round of applause for getting out of his chair. Very good. There you go, very good. Anybody else? Anybody else? Peak moment? Popcorn? Yeah, okay, come on and get it. Yeah, here we go. Very good. You got the peanut butter one. That's, Erdnuss is peanut in German. Okay, very good. Okay, so that was kind of like a cheap way of me like creating a peak moment, but you see how easy it can be, right? Those cost me like €4, Okay, so, I mean, they were super expensive. So fabulous. Make sure to share take photos, share your popcorn. It's going to be great. Okay, and also, I just do want to say that this didn't come out of nowhere. I love popcorn. It's like my favorite snack. And in Germany, small side note, it's really hard to find salty popcorn, so all the popcorn is sweet, unfortunately. But that's okay, it's besides the point as well. Let's move on. Okay, great. So number 3, what do we have here? Okay, so good workshops get the outcome that you planned, yes? Agreed? Couple of nods? Yeah. I would say definitely, you plan to get an outcome. A good result would be that you achieve the outcome, right? But great workshops include next steps. And actually, I would even argue that it's not even it's like a standard workshop should always include next steps. So this is something that people miss all the time, right? At the end of the workshop, everybody's like, wow, we got a lot done, that was awesome. And then everybody kind of goes their separate ways. And we have all these cool new ideas that are kind of just gonna float around for a while in someone's desk drawer. Remember when we had desk drawers? Nobody has a desk drawer. On their desktop, how about that? That was better. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that the workshop actually doesn't end when the workshop ends, right? Or at least your duty as a workshop facilitator doesn't end then. So what does that exactly involve? What does it mean when I say you need to have next steps? Super clearly, next steps are not a follow-up meeting. So I think this is one thing that people do a lot, is at the end of the workshop, they're like, all right, everybody, when's everyone free next week to follow up, right? Unfortunately, not a lot is going to happen from the time that you leave the workshop to your follow-up meeting unless you specifically decide what's going to happen. So included in your workshop should be action points, and these action points need to be assigned to a human being, right? A real person on the team who's going to not necessarily do the actions or actually do the work, but they're in charge, they're responsible for making sure that it happens. This is so key. And it needs to be like at the end of your workshop, and it needs to be built in. It's not the conversation that happens after the workshop is over, right? So I can't stress that enough. The other important thing is that your actions need to be measurable and have a timeline. So there needs to be a deadline for how long you have to complete the action. I think it's very common that people get together and they're like, we need a solution for this challenge. And then we spend a day or whatever coming up with a solution, and that's all well and good. But at the end of the workshop, nothing happens with the solution. There's no prototype that's made. There's no testing that goes into play. And that is such a huge problem. We heard all about prototyping today, right? We know how important that is and how, not easy, but how accessible prototyping is. And it's so important to follow through with those things. So actions need to be measurable and have a timeline. Okay, number 4, good workshops are very well facilitated. This is an important one for me. It's near and dear to my heart because I think a lot of people are nervous about, I guess you could, facilitation and public speaking are kind of in the same boat, right? And people are super nervous about running any kind of workshop. That's the one thing that I do with my coaching clients a lot is really kind of pumping them up to be able to give them the confidence they need to walk in the room and facilitate this workshop that we've worked so hard to design. But the thing is about this is actually great workshops focus on the participants, right? So it's not really about the facilitator. And I think people often think I need to walk in the room and command the room, and then I need to be funny and charismatic and just really awesome. But it's actually not true. I think that a lot of facilitators come in all forms, right, and all styles. And the most important thing is that you're actually thinking about your participants before you're thinking about your performance, right? So how do you do that, though, right? How do we actually put our participants first? Well, the biggest thing is to remember it's not about you, it's about them. So we heard also about the hero, right? In this case, we are not the hero. The participants in the workshop are the hero. Ooh, there's lots of levels to that, isn't there? Because then the hero is the customer, and it just goes on and on. Okay, but that's important to remember, first consideration. Second thing is something that I think people miss a lot, is just thinking about how your participants are feeling throughout the workshop. So a participant enters your workshop. How do you anticipate they might be feeling, right? They might be nervous, or they might be feeling nervous, right? Maybe they've never done a workshop before. They don't know what to expect. They might be feeling a bit annoyed that they've been pulled out of their regular work and assigned to be in your workshop even though they didn't really want to be there. It happens all the time. So considering those things, what are you going to do as the facilitator to make sure that they're actually, you can turn that feeling around? So what I would do if I had someone who was coming in and they were a bit annoyed, about being there, I would be super thankful to everybody who's spent, I'd make sure that I thank everybody for, I know you guys are busy. I'm so glad that you've taken the time because we're going to do some great work here today. And it was so critical that we had you here because you're bringing this expertise, right? So making people feel special in the room, making them understand that they're actually, very much needed in order to get to the outcome that we're hoping to achieve. If someone comes in and they're like, oh, I've never done a workshop before, I'm feeling kind of nervous, then I'm thinking about that and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make sure that they understand, this is actually kind of silly, but understand you're going to try to eliminate any unknowns, right? So it's okay, everybody needs to know where the bathroom is, right? I know maybe you're doing it in your office, but maybe not, maybe you're off-site, so it's there are certain things. Where's the bathroom? What time are we gonna have lunch approximately? How often are we gonna have breaks? What can I expect the flow of this workshop to look like, right? So all of a sudden, they feel a little bit more relaxed because they know what to expect, right? So all of these little things, and throughout your workshop, after lunch, everybody is feeling super exhausted. So what are you gonna do about it, right? You're maybe gonna add a little energizer in there. So really actually mapping out the feelings and emotions and how people are actually, how they're feeling throughout the day is going to be a game changer for making your workshop, taking it from good to great. That's what we're talking about. Okay. And then, okay, I feel actually super embarrassed about this because it's not just personality types, right? We learned that there are all kinds of different things to consider. We talked a lot about neurodivergence and all those kind of things, and I feel ashamed that I have personality types in here. What am I, from the 90s? Okay, doesn't matter. You understand what I'm saying. So if you have people in the room who are loud, you have people who are quiet, you have people who need time to think, you have people who think while they're speaking, right? You have all of these different things happening. So when you're designing your workshop, you need to consider that, of course, right? You need to make sure that you have exercises that allow people to kind of have their moment, that allow them to actually work how they like to work, right? So that is super important to consider. So when you're looking at your timeline of your workshop and you see it, you're like, oh, we're all just kind of like I'm just moderating a discussion the whole time, or other way around, oh, we're all just writing things down the entire time. This is a problem, right? Because you're just targeting all of your exercises and your workshop to one kind of person. So very important to remember that you need to think about the differing, like all the different people and how we all operate differently. Okay, and I just wanted, just a reminder, because I think that I really want to empower more people to run workshops. It's a apparently I'm really obsessed with them, but it's a powerful tool that allows, you as maybe you're a junior, maybe you're a mid-level, it allows you to move into those more strategic conversations, which is where you want to be as a designer. It allows you to be a part of something, like be a part of creating the solution to the big challenge, right? It's just such a powerful tool, and I think more people can actually do it and do it well, even though they think they might not be able to. So I just wanted to remind you of that. Okay. Number 5. This is my last good to great tip. So, good workshops leave participants feeling accomplished, right? Everybody leaves the room and they're like, oh man, that was awesome. Like, we really got down to the point there. We did some really awesome work. We got a lot done. Unfortunately, people often leave a workshop or leave work, and then all of a sudden their regular life sort of trickles in, and they start to forget about what they did 2 days ago, right? So, my point here is that great workshops have photographic proof. Am I right? Is that creepy? Maybe. But let me just walk you through this, okay? Because what the title of my talk today is how to run workshops that get you noticed. And one thing that I learned early in my career was that when you want to be noticed, when at work, for the work that you're doing, you're working really hard and you want people to take notice, whether it's your manager or your other teammates, whoever it might be. The thing that is that you have to remember is that you need to tell people about all the amazing work that you're doing. You have to be the one to demonstrate what it is that you've achieved. So this is kind of like a sneaky way of doing that, which I think is kind of cool for people who don't want to be so obvious, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to tell everyone that you're going to be documenting the day or the hours or the week or whatever your workshop is. You're going to take action shots and videos and of people moving around the room, of people putting Post-its up, of people laughing, of people writing ideas down and thinking really hard. The whole process is documented, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to share that with the team in a nicely packaged item, right? You're going to wrap it up in a digital bow, and you're going to deliver it to your team, and you're going to say, look at this, guys. Look at this awesome work we did. Remember all the exercises we went through, and how, I took you from, we were scoping the challenge, and then we were creating ideas, and then we were, executing on those ideas, and we prototyped, and you have the whole thing in front of them. And the key about this, what makes this really, really powerful, is not actually the fact that you share it with the team, which is a great reminder for the team, but they often share it with other teams, right? They then are because everybody wants to be look at how hard we were working, right? Do you see what we did last week? Yeah. What have you been doing, right? Everybody's in a competition, so just help them out, right? Help them look good. You make your clients or your team or whatever look good. It makes you look good. So this is super important that maybe you just mention it. Oh, feel free. Yeah, you can share that wherever you want to share that. You just go for it, right? And then they go and share it. And happy days, you've got people calling you up for more cool strategic workshops. You're in these rooms with the decision makers, with the stakeholders, with the people that you want to be in the room with. And that's exactly what you want. So let's do a little quick recap, shall we? What makes a workshop great? Okay. We set the right expectations, right? Very, very important. Second, great workshops create peak moments. Popcorn, right? Okay, very good. Thirdly, great workshops provide clear next steps. So important. Great workshops get everybody involved and make everybody feel heard. And great workshops, you document and you share them. Okay, so this is your good to great workshop guide. Now, I have one last reminder before I open the floor to questions, if you have them. If you don't, then we can just have some drinks and hang out, and that's cool too, right? So my last thing that I want you to remember. Oh, by the way, this is actually, I had an illustrator that's me. Does it look like me? That's me energizing everybody. It's kind of cool, right? I use it all the time, maybe too much. Okay, so remember, everyone has the potential to run great workshops and get noticed. Thank you very much. And now I know we haven't done a lot of Q&A, so totally fine if we don't want to do that. But if you do want to, let's be friends. You know, we can be friends. LinkedIn, on Instagram, I'm on both of those things. But should we just, yeah, let's talk over drinks. It's way more fun, right? Okay, welcome Rui back to the stage, please. Come on, Rui.